So hello everyone and welcome to the UX offices. So we are UX Republic and I'm going to introduce briefly who we are and what we do. So we are a UX consulting firm since 2013, so it's been already 10 years. We are initially based in France, but today we try to develop the agency. So we are in Switzerland, we are in Utrecht, we're also in France, as I said. And recently, it's been, I will say, 1 or 2 years ago, we arrived in Belgium and we want to develop and to give more opportunities to work on UX with the Belgian clients. Recently, we opened our training center, so digital training center. We focus on live and tailor-made training. So it means that we work mainly with leaders and to help their team to just upgrade their skills. We also do remote training, but that's not the focus of our business. Also, we are recruiting. So if you feel at ease with giving formation training to people, you are really a specialist in a specific topic, don't hesitate to contact me or to reach us with your email, with the email of UX Republic. You're going to find it at the end of the presentation. Maybe I will also add that we have different specialization, but we have more than 20 courses, so it's really large. We focus on strategy and also UI, UX design. So it means it can be lean UX design thinking, but it can also be really technical, like how to use Figma and how to migrate from a tool like Sketch to Figma. Let's go to the main part of why we came, maybe. User interview 2.0. So let's introduce myself first. I'm in the field of UX for now 10 years. I focus especially on user research and UX strategy, but I started, like a lot of people, in UI design. Why I do this talk is because I have some expertise in user interviews. I have, in the past 3 years, I did more than 200 user research sessions, especially qualitative research. So it means it's focused more on one-to-one or small groups of people. It's not big data, it's not quantity, it's not my specialty. Maybe a quick question before the start. I would like to know, so I see that half of the audience is pretty new. I would like to know here who already did one user interview. Okay, it's like almost everyone. Who never did a user interview? Okay. I count 10 people. Who did more than 10 user interviews? Okay, more than 15 people. Who did more than 100 user interviews? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh, nice. Who did more than 300 user interviews? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. Nice. So I didn't do a too advanced course on it. I think it's going to be good for the room we have today. I'll break down this talk in 3 parts: goal, style, and tools. Based on my experience and what I did in the past, I think it's 3 key components, 3 things that you should focus on to really be more confident when you do user testing. Doesn't matter if you start in the field or if you're already used to it. I think it's 3 key focus that you should have. Let's meet it together. So first one, goal, is okay, what you should do even before to do user testing, preparation. Second one is style. So how should you approach it? What kind of position as an interviewer you should have? And the third one, it's tools. It's how you want to do it, what kind of tools you want to use. How can you improve like the environment, the context you have when you do user interviews? So let's start with goal. So what to do before user interviews. What's the goal? What's the benefits of doing it? I will just give you some, it can be basic for some people, but something it's really important to think about. So first one, it's about the structure. You can have basically 3 different types of structure when you want to approach a user interview. It can be really structured, so it's like a survey, like a questionnaire. You really want to define a lot of specific questions, and you just expect basic answers from people. Then, at the opposite of the spectrum, you're gonna have unstructured interview. It's more like you have some topics, some theme in mind. You will meet people, and they will talk about it. This is great. It's more for discovery startups when you don't know your product, when you don't know your service. Some of them have benefits, like the structure one. It's really better for homogeneity when you want to have something easy to analyze. Unstructured is great because it opens all the doors, but of course it's hard to analyze at the end. And then the semi-structure is more like the most famous one, the most used one, because it gives you a lot of freedom and liberty when you are doing the user interview. We have 3 medias. Most people don't know, from my experience. We all know when we say user interview, okay, it means you're gonna meet someone, you're gonna ask what they want, they're gonna say you, and then you're gonna make it. Yeah, not really. So we have 2 different types. We have, I'm gonna start with telephone interviews. So basically, you pick up the phone, you call someone, and you get some input, some feedback from them. It can be really interesting because it's not cost effective. So it means if you want to meet like 20 people, you just need the phone numbers, you call them, and you get feedback. It's pretty easy. Internet interviews. What's internet interviews? It can be anything. It can be email, it can be chat, it can be any discussion you're gonna have with someone, but it's written. So it means it's written, you're gonna have it on paper. It's really easy to analyze, but you're gonna miss a lot of information. So we can go back to face-to-face interview. This is also one of the most famous. It's the one you should stick if you're not sure what you do with your user interviews, because again, as I said before, it gives you a lot of freedom, and it allows for a lot of room, because you're gonna meet the person, it's gonna be more natural in the flow, and you're gonna get a lot of specific insights to work on. I will add something also. So I'm going to give you some example from a company I worked with. I think I can say it's Bpost. You all know Bpost, I suppose. And I've been working for them just before the COVID. And it was a lot of physical user interviews. And then it was COVID. Then we had to do it remote. And I really realized that it was lacking the fact to meet people, to get feedback, because when we have remote discussion, it's easy, it's comfortable, but you miss so much information. It can be body language, of course, but also the engagement of the person. It's really something that I miss a lot. And for me, it's an important point because I know that as a designer, we like when it's comfy, when we are behind our screen, but we are really want to motivate you to meet the user, even if it's not that cost effective. 2 different formats, group interview, individual interview. So group interviews, you probably know it. It's called also focus groups, and then individual interviews. When I say focus group, I can see on the faces, it's like, no, we don't do it, it doesn't work, it's useless. It's useless. It's useful, sorry. It's a lapsus. It can be useful, okay. Why is it useful? Because it's more natural, actually. When you, for example, you have 6 people, or it can be up to 10, I recommend. They meet each other, they have discussion, and the thing is, you're gonna have a flow, you're gonna have some conflict between people, they're gonna exchange on topics they know, on experience they have in common. When you are the interviewer, you don't have the same experience, the same background as the other person. So you're gonna have really nice feedback from it. Individual interviews, no need to explain, it's the best format because it's intimate, it's confidential. For example, at Bpost, I didn't need it, but if you work, let's say, with an insurance, when it's a really specific topic and sensible topic, it's really hard to make it, to do it in a focus group. So it's really a good idea to just go one-to-one in this case. So voila, you just got an overview of what you should think about before to just go for a face-to-face interview, let's say remote with someone. There is a lot of different formats, and it's good to think about them before to dive in it. My second point is style. So what style, what position, what posture you want to have when you do a user interview. Most people, what they do when they have to do a user interview, they're gonna meet someone and they're gonna talk with them and they want the other person to be active. So they're gonna ask questions, they're gonna say, okay, nice, it's good, tell me more, tell me more. You're gonna get a lot of feedback and at the end, okay, you have the thing and you want to analyze it. But there's more than meets the eye. I'm gonna show you that right now. So basically, we have two different interview styles, receptive and assertive style. The one everybody knows normally, it's receptive style. It's more like sensible, it's more like you're kind, you're friendly, and you receive what the other user is going to tell you. Assertive style is more like you're going to be more pushy, you're going to challenge him. I'm going to dive in it. For the first one, 3 key insights I have from this style, it is that it empowers the participant. So when you're receptive, more like sensitive, you give the power to your other user. They're going to give you a lot of more feedback. They're going to be more engaging in the discussion. Then you have the trust generation. So if you want, again, it's like the focus group example. If you want to go for something really sensitive, like talking about, I don't know, having a child, for example, it's really better to have this kind of style because the other is going to open up way more if you're like more a good friend to them. And then focus on the what. Because when you do a user interview, everybody think about, okay, we just get content from it. It's just an interview, then you have content and you analyze it. But we also have to focus on the how. And I'm going to explain it just after why. So the what is the content, basically, what you get from it. Assertive style, it empowers the interviewer. So basically, it's you when you do it. You have more the lead on the topics, on the themes. You can challenge the user. You can be more aggressive in your style. And you're going to bring different behavior from the user. You generate co-creation. So it means you also part of the interview. So the feedback, the content you're going to get from the user interview, you're also part of it. So you are an element of the interview. You're not like neutral, like a robot. You just have some question and you ask them like a chatbot could do. It's not real. You have an impact. And the last one, focus on the how and not on the what. So how does the interview went? Was it in like a sensible context? Was it in a lab? Was it on site? What kind of tools did you bring? All of this you have to refer them in the analysis and talk about it because it's going to be more important when you have this assertive style. Last point here is interview questions. There's a lot to say about interview questions, a lot of articles on like Nielsen Norman you're going to find how to ask good question, good follow-up question. Here is just 3 points I think you should focus on when you do it. First one, exploring the past. Most of the time you want to ask questions about the past of the user, what they do in the past. Caution here because we know this bias. Most people think they remember really well their past experiences, but that's not true. We just have some pieces of puzzles of what we remember. So be cautious on it. And there is a technique I will give you just after to get really more natural and true feedback from the users. Beware of the wording. So it's the way of formulating. Are you gonna talk? It can be really important. So it doesn't mean you have to like read your paper when you meet the user, like, okay, I'm gonna read you the next question. It's more like being attentive at the words you're gonna use. For example, you ask the user, okay, can you describe me what you did the last time you bought a pair of sneakers? Then you're gonna have a cold description, oh, I did this, I clicked there, blah, blah, blah. But you can also ask, it's almost the same, it's like describe me how you felt the last time you bought a pair of sneakers. Just because I said how you felt, they're gonna say, oh, yeah, it was annoying. This website it doesn't work really well. And I was super excited because I searched for a long time. I went on YouTube. And the feedback is gonna be really different based on if you ask about the feelings or just a description. So be sure when you define your goals and what you want to get from the interview to have a good question related to it. And the last one, emphasize really. we have two types of question I like to recommend. It's follow-up question and interpretive question. So follow-up question is just to help the user to say what they want to say. For example, they're going to say, oh, last time I bought a pair of sneakers. It was pretty difficult because, well, it was not easy. And then you're just going to repeat, okay, it was not easy. They're going to say, yeah, it was not easy because of this or that. And then you can also say, okay. And just wait. And then you're going to have a lot of feedback from people. I recommend this kind of technique because you don't need skills to do it. You just need to be patient, to be comfortable, and wait for the user to just say what they need to say. And then you have the interpreting question. So it's when you're gonna interpret what the other users say. So they're gonna say something, you're not sure about it because it's a bit technical, and then you're gonna just interpret it. I had this problem a lot at Bpost because they use a lot of technical words when they do like sending parcels, and so I had to interpret it to be sure I understand it. And so also it's here that I have a role as an interviewer because they realize that I'm here in the room and I don't get it, so it's like more a discussion than just a scientific testing someone else with how they feel, what they want. So voila, about different style. You can see it's pretty wide, but the thing is most people don't think about it. So I just want you to be aware that you can have different style as an interviewer. It's not bad to like go a bit conflictual with other people to just really see what's behind how they feel and what they want. The next thing is tools. So what kind of material you want to bring with you. So when I say user interview and I ask to people what kind of tool they want to bring, they're going to tell me, okay, I just need my guide, I just need a camera, and I just need a room, and that's it. But there's more things you can bring and something that you should be attentive to. In the background, it's not mine, but it's kind of the tools you can have in your bag. So first thing I like to say is keep it light. For example, when I record a session, I just use a voice recorder. Some people, they just take their iPhone and they put it on record and they record a session, but the problem is then you don't have access to your iPhone anymore. But you want it to do photo, you want it to do video. But then you can say, okay, but videos and photos, I can take a camera, I have nice stuff, it's like a big camera, and don't use it. People are pretty scared by it. They think it's gonna be an interview, and they have to do well, and with the pressure, they want it to be good. And if you use only an iPhone, it's more like, oh, can I just record it quickly? And they don't mind. And then it's cheaper also, and give you more access to it. You don't need like budget to do user interview. Next one is one-page guide. So when you do user interview, you have a guide. So it means you have the questions you want to go through, you have the themes. But I recommend to just have one page. So for you, you can have 20 pages of question, what thing you want to explore, for sure. But I recommend just to have with you one-page guide. And what I do is on the left, I have all the themes I want to cover. And on the right, I have all the questions. And I just focus on the themes. For example, I can have 5 to 10 themes. Like I want to explore how they feel about the last time they bought something. And I want to feel how they feel. I want to know how they feel the last time they had to wait for something. And then again, explore it. I can also work on the question, but I don't want to focus on it. Because what I don't like to see is when they have just a piece of paper and you're talking and they're like, yeah, and they just look at the next question and they just wait for you to shut up and to read the next question. And this is really annoying. And when someone else is going to see it, they're going to say, okay, I'm just going to reply to your question. It's not a discussion anymore. And people want to discuss in a user interview. It's not like a scientific testing you for medical reason or something like this. And the last point is business cards. Yeah, it's a trick I discovered recently. So when I was working at Bpost, I was a consultant, so I was not part of Bpost, and I was testing the site that is live today. It's bpost.be. I wanted to make sure that people to be comfortable with giving me feedback. So they always thought I was part of bpost. They will tell me at the end, oh, and so you're going to do the design of the website, you're going to improve it then? And I say, no, 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 I'm not part of the company. Ah, okay, and then they try to give, they start to give feedback, but it's the end of the interview. So I realized that giving a business card at the beginning of the interview, it helps people to just open up. They say, okay, this guy, it's neutral. It's not part of the company. I can really open up and I can give any feedback about bpost. It can be good feedback, it can be bad, but it doesn't matter. It's always about making the other one comfortable because it's really stressful. Some people won't just make it like, oh, I'm relaxed, I can give you any feedback, but believe me, most of us, we're not used to like doing user interviews, just talking with someone in a special condition like a lab, something like this. Shape the environment. So I was talking about the context before. So set the scene, it means you want to make the other one comfortable. And it's great if you can just have clues to remind them that they are not in a test environment. So some people will say, oh, it's good to go guerrilla, but maybe it's too noisy. So try to just find an in-between between like the lab, like the room, business room, super wide and super big table, and you just discuss with another one, or going to the Starbucks. Starbucks is noisy, it's a bit weird, it's like too formal. So try to find an in-between and shape a bit the environment. And if you can, go on site, of course. But I know that it's not always easy to go on site, especially when I worked at bpost. Most people, they just receive parcel and envelope at their home. I was not going to go to their home and wait for them with the envelope, and so you have to bring the people to your office, of course. Bring the tools. Well, to just complete it. For example, bpost, I was using envelope and parcel, like it's 3D, it's real. So they can use it during like the user interview, and then I do a small user testing next to it also, so that people, for example, they have to define what kind of format they want to have for an envelope. Then they're going to think, okay, I can visualize it, but if I just put some envelope and parcel next to them and I don't say even to use it, they're going to pick it, they're going to turn it, and then I can see really live, or we can improve it like on the website by creating some 3D illustration or just modelization of the product. And the last point, give homework. Give them homework. You can give some homework to people. For example, you can send them an email the day before. Just say, okay, I want you to bring like 10 last pair of sneakers you bought, or if you keep the boxes, you can keep them, like you can bring them with you, something like this. It can be really nice and useful, but of course it's a bit time consuming and you have to pay people for this kind of situation, otherwise it's going to be a bit too much of work for them if they do it for free. Still have time. Last slide is the small neuro trick I'm going to give you that I use most of the time for user interviews. It's called photo elicitation. It's the idea to use images, visuals, to really trigger the deep memory of people. So you just pick images, they're going to interpret it, and then they're going to give you feedback on it. So what I do basically, there are different ways to do it, but how I do it is just I select some images based on the subject. Then when I meet people, I just give them, they pick one image and they're going to start to explain me what they feel about it or describe a situation about it. And it's going to be really easier for them because they see the picture and they can also like reflect on it. And also, why it's working for some people is because some people, they don't like eye contact. They can be shy or they can have anything related to it. They don't want eye contact, and if you're just next to them and you just show a picture, oh, can you show me, or can you draw something for me, it's gonna really work. They're gonna really think about deeply about their memory. It's gonna work really well. And also, when I was at bpost, some people, it was easy. They just brought their iPad to me, and on the iPad they have images, and they can go anytime through their photos and give me feedback on it. So that's why about the homework you saw before, it can be really nice to ask to people to bring some picture from their part. So you discovered 3 things on which to focus for user interviews. So goal, really prepare it really well. Be sure you have to do user interviews like face-to-face or focus group, anything. Then the style, define your approach before the user interview. You can change from interview to interview, but when you are in an interview, they want to be sure who you are and be sure to really stick to that personality when you do the user interview. And the last one, tools, it's just be bold, be creative. Try to bring the universe, bring the environment of the user to you, to your lab, and it's gonna really help to emphasize with them. To finish, I have a quote from Sven Brinkmann. I'm gonna read it, so I'm sure everybody's gonna read it. The worst thing will be for qualitative interviewing to be reduced to just a single thing. Human conversations serve many purposes and can be conducted in many different ways. And this should be borne in mind by qualitative interviewers now and in the future. And I wanted to write something about it, but it's so exactly what I wanted to say, so I just read it for you. And for information, Sven Brinkmann is a qualitative researcher. Yeah, it's a real job. He's Danish, and he's working from the Qualitative Research Center in Denmark. And I based my talk mostly on this book that he released 1 year ago about qualitative research. So, because I also like to not only read books that are titled UX books, but also books from other user research environments, so we can bring the academic part of the work into UX design. Thank you for your time and attention. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Thank you very much for the talk, and it was really nice memory lane for me in the interviews. I'm not doing them that much anymore, but it was nice to get some more information. I was very interested in the last part, the photo elicitation. I'll have some questions for you for that. But do you guys have any questions for Mathieu?
All clear.
Okay, maybe.
In the assertive style, if you challenge somebody, do you have any tips and tricks on how to do that without introducing any bias in the way that you?
The easier way to do it is just to ask to specify what they say, because most of the time when we speak, we just say things, and then when you have to specify them, it's a bit complex. So when you are receptive, you try not to do it too much. But for example, you're gonna say me, I like when people do this. And you're going to say, okay, but why do you like it? Are you sure? Or what's the mindset you have right now to think it? And they're going to be a bit annoyed. That's why it's assertive. They're going to say, I don't know, I just feel it. I just like it. It's really hard for us to justify our behavior, why we do what we do. And so they're going to be annoyed. And that's why it's assertive. But indeed, it's a bit more complex. And I would suggest to stick on receptive if you're not used to do user interviews. Because it's always the problem with user interview, all the bias you can bring into them, indeed.
Yes. I have a question for the receptive style, because you tend to empathize and emphasize with them and try to get them open to you, but sometimes they are just, because you're nice and you listen, they also become too nice. And how do you find the way to, they need to think that they're in the situation, and they're in the lab, or we try to simulate something that looks like their home and we get them in our lab, but they should still think of maybe frustration that they have, but they still want to be nice because you're nice to them. How do you steer that?
I try to switch the perspective. So I try to say, okay, here's my role. That's why also I emphasize the role of the interviewer. I'm the interviewer, and I need you really to share as much frustration as what you like, because frustration is really useful for us. It really helps us to build a product. So if you can share it with me, we can improve that for a lot of people. And if you emphasize on helping a lot of other people, thanks to your frustration, it works pretty well from my experience. Because they say, oh yeah, I want to help other people. Yeah, okay, so share your frustration. Then they're going to go for it. Because indeed, they think that if they complain, we're gonna say, oh, sick, we did not a good job. But yeah, but there was always problem with any product or service. So.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a question about the images
Yeah.
towards the end. So maybe I didn't quite understand how is that related to the product. So I guess if you're doing research on travel sites, it's kind of easy. But if you're kind of doing research on like a specific, I don't know, like taxes or something, so how do you then bring images into that?
The thing is, when you do the study, what you define is exactly the journey you want to work on. So some people like to have like a large journey, like buying on an e-commerce. Or it can be really specific, like just the feedback, the feeling you have when you receive a pair of sneakers. So once it's defined, for example, the feeling you have when you receive a pair of sneakers, you just give them the journey. We're gonna work on it. I don't tell you the specific product, the specific website or anything. I just give you a topic, a journey, and based on that, I want you to bring some element from your life. Images, videos, it can be a pair of sneakers, anything. And so they are actor of it. It's easier if you do it yourself as an interviewer, just picking stuff from internet or from your place that you think are relevant. But if you can just invite them to bring them the material, it's way more effective.
Annie?
Yeah, good question. I think one of my biggest pain points is spending a lot of time preparing for research and interviews,
Yeah.
and then just feeling like I'm not getting the right people in the room to talk to. So I don't know if you have any tricks or tips about that in terms of, do you do any like pre-screening activities, or I don't know, how do you make sure that you get the right people in the room?
Yeah, indeed. I don't mention it in the talk, but that's maybe the most important part, the screening part. So my number one tip is just don't do it. Just pay people for doing it. That's what I always did. So you just go via a company. It's going to cost you between 70 to 140 euro per participant. They're going to do the job for you. You're just going to say, okay, I have these criteria, I want these people, and then you recruit them. One of the most interesting important criteria to define when you recruit is to define what kind of behavior the people you want have. So, for example, it's young people buying sneakers because they think it's cool, and they buy it only on e-commerces. That's a behavior. But try not to stick too much on like the ages, so all the demographics like ages as a woman, a man, this kind of thing. It's more important for qualitative. And if you have to do it yourself, I will say go on testingtime.com. I don't have any referral with them, but testingtime.com, they have a super nice screener guide. It's like 10 pages. Everything is said in it. So, but it's pretty tricky to really have a nice screening question. So I will say just let the company do it.
Cool. Sasha?
When you have all the data,
Yeah.
What's your process for analyzing the content?
So basically, all the data is in the voice recorder initially, so it's wrong. What I do is after a user interview, I just sit down and I push play on the recorder and I just write it down everything. I try to transcribe a lot, but it's sometimes too expensive. You want to transcribe everything. So what I do, I just sit down, I listen to it, and then I fill everything in like an Excel, it can be a Google Doc, anything. Good to mention also that I always let time between the user interview. I don't do like 5 user interview in one day. I try to do like 1 to 2 max a day, so I can adapt the next day, like the way I'm going to talk, the kind of question I'm going to have. Then about the analysis, it's not like a user testing or like anything really scientific. For me, it's more about what was the feeling about the interview. When people like raised their voice, were quiet, or like annoyed, neutral, this kind of thing. And then I will have key insight from it, and that's what I'm going to talk about in the next presentation I'm going to have. So it's really a different approach from usability testing, where it's more like you try to find patterns, what people do, where they have problems, stuff like this. And that's also the tricky part. It's easier to do the interview, it's funnier to do, but analysis is for me most complex. And like it's qualitative, so it's always, it's not that scientific, but it works really well. So we have to do it, and we have to accept that it's a messy process. And we have to be, I think, transparent about it. That's again why, as interviewer, we have also, what I do is I say the methods I use, of course, but I also say who I am, how I talked, how I asked the question, how was the participant feeling during the interview? Was he comfortable, not comfortable? Sometimes this part of the analysis is really skipped. It's more like, we went to a room, it was that moment, it was a man, and then this is the content. You just have raw data. And for me, the whole part is really important to integrate also in the analysis.
We got actually the same question from our online community. So I hope the person is satisfied with the answer.
There's a lot to say in analysis, and I wanted to do the talk about it, but I suppose it's a bit too advanced and too boring for people. But in the book I mentioned, I'm going to give you the reference. It's really well detailed how to do it properly.
Cool. Any more questions? Okay.
I have 3 references I want to give you.
Yeah, sure.
Know that you're really excited for your new user interview. Here are 3 books you can read, and based on your personality, your mindset, what you want to do, here are 3 different books, as much as valuable. The first one, Interviewing Users. It's from Steve Portigal, so it's more like a UX guru, famous one, I think from America. Is the 101 of user testing, user interview. So basically, you want to do it, you want to start to do it like next week, you just read this book. The second one is more about like the mindset, how to position yourself as a UX researcher. It's more specific, so it's more like for profile, like UX designer want to specialize in user research. And it's also one of the best books since like 4 to 5 last year, but it's not that famous. And the last one is the last one I read, so it was published last year, I think. It's from Sven Brinkmann, and it's really about what is qualitative interviewing, that we translate user interviews. So it's all about like the story about it, why we do user interview, what is it to, what's in the world, is it to discuss with people. It's more like psychology, philosophy, but you also have like I said, all the analysis part, or to analyze it without bias and stuff like this. Voilà.
Okay, thank you very much then. So before we're gonna have a break, I would like to give a small introduction to Sasha. Sasha is working for Ariad. You probably all know Ariad, and if you don't, you should. So Ariad is actually one of the biggest in Belgium, I guess, and also a European player in recruitment, specializing in what we are doing, so UX design and design in general. And they are actually for a very long time, our sponsor. So if you would like to reach out to Ariad, Sasha is here today. Sasha, can you wave?
He's there.
So you can talk to Sasha as well. Okay, so now we're gonna have a break. Please enjoy the food and the beers, and we will be back at 8 p.m., right? Yeah. Thank you.